'Tis I. Hey everyone, glad to see you back, glad to see you looking fresh, and today I want to talk about Slime, the anime, and the game, because there's a slime, or that time I got reincarnated as a slime. I will not be calling it by the full title, again, this entire video. There's a game for it. Did you know that? Not many people seem to know that, and I don't know if it's for good reason. I mean, the game seems fine. I haven't played it yet. I'm a physical collector at heart. So if a game doesn't get a physical, I am hesitant, I'm slow to get it. That's just who I am. And the game didn't get a physical here in America. It did in Japan, so I, put it on my wish list, bucket list. When I can finally visit Japan someday, it'll be a game I will be hunting for as a nice little memory, a nice little token to bring home with me. Of course, I could always import it, but the game doesn't seem good enough to warrant the import costs. But what if it was? What if it was just that good? A game about an anime that I love. I adore this anime. It's one of my favorites, probably my favorite isekai. Just simply put, one of my favorite anime, period. Very much enjoying, here we are in the 3rd season. Great times to be a Slime fan. So, I wanted to rework the game. If I was creative director of a Slime game, maybe taking aspects of the game that already exists, building upon them, changing it up, what would I do for it? So, without further ado, let's get into this thing. So, as the game exists now, it basically works in 3 different sections. One part is a visual novel where you talk, interact with different characters in the world, whatever, fine enough. The second part is the combat section. And this works as like a Tales of, combat system, the older style Tales of, pseudo like that, not exactly a one-to-one, but generally speaking, it's like that with some dungeon exploration, pretty light dungeon exploration, but essentially that's how the combat works. And the third part is a town builder. So I'm going to start with the first part that I brought up. So the visual novel social aspect of this game, I'm not a visual novel guy. I've said that before. If you are, that's great. It's just not for me. If I wanted to read, I'll read a book. If I want to read a visual, I can read a comic or a manga or something like that. I don't need it in a video game form. If you like it, great. I'm going to rework that section. I don't think it needs to be a core component of the game play, for sure. I think we can, take the story of Slime and pretty much tell it, not beat for beat, but we can expand upon it. Like, we start where the show starts, and I'll get more into the reasons why later. But we start where the show starts, and we just kind of continue on throughout where the show and the light novel go. And the story of Rimuru and the characters we meet along the way, and the different chapters along the way, and there's plenty of story beats and chapters to go throughout the game with. So we don't need visual novel aspects and talking directly to the characters so much. I think including the voice cast is a no-brainer, and I think some anime cutscenes are a no-brainer. We don't need to rip them directly from the show. We can create new ones, but we also don't need anime cutscenes for everything, because that's going to expand our budget to massive proportions. And I want to be realistic. Why is that the story I'm going with, and changing the visual novel aspect of it? Because I want to expand the combat systems with this game. So, as you may or not know, Slime is about a slime named Rimuru, and he is transported to this world, and he gains abilities through a special slime capability. It becomes basically the strongest being in the universe, planet, whatever. So we start the game as a lowly slime, and we meet Valdor the Storm Dragon, and we can gain powers by defeating enemies or, gaining magic crystals and spending them to learn new abilities, upgrade our abilities that we already have, stuff like that. I want the combat system to start slow, and then we can expand, tree branch out into a variety of different things. But the core system I want is basically, think of the enemy materia from Final Fantasy VII, to where you learn moves from enemies more often than you learn them yourself. Rimuru will have his own set of basic abilities, to where, just thinking it, the hardcores can play this game without gaining a single enemy ability and brute force their way through the game if they want to. But the collectors out there, the ones who want to explore and gain every little bit that this game has to offer, I want to give a plethora of different options for enemy moves and ways those can branch and the ways those can combine. I think of it like this. Say later on in the story of Slime, you meet the Demon Lords. And during a boss fight, say one of them is weak to a certain move that you may have learned like way before, like a Goblin Punch. Let's just steal a move directly from Final Fantasy VII. And Goblin Punch is like an okay move, a move that you would probably use when you first got it and then kind of forgot about because it was like fine, but you had other moves that were just as fine that you were used to. But say like this one boss is like really weak to that one move. Like obviously without it, you can still beat it. I'm not going to make this boss impossible without an obscure move. But it rewards the collectors who went out of their way to get a move that's not that great. And it still provides the challenge for people that don't want to just, quote unquote, cheese the fight. You know? I think that's a win-win. And by using this combat system, you can learn moves from all the different types of races, all the different types of creatures that Rimuru meets along the way. And I think because of that, we're going to strip away like the multiple characters that you can use. I really just want to focus on Rimuru. He's of course the main character of this story anyway, so I think just focusing on him and making him as best as we can is the right call. So that's essentially the gameplay. I'm down for exploring some dungeons. I don't want it to be the main crux of exploration though. I think having a whole chapter on like the war with the lizard folk, and then, you know, meeting, of course, the goblins is a big one, meeting the orcs is a big one, when he goes and becomes a teacher, that's a big one, meeting the demon, like, there are tons of chapters in this story that would work great in video game form. It doesn't need to just be go to dungeon, collect things, bring them back to town. But the town part, I do really want to keep. I think this is where the game can shine in a different light. Of course, I think the combat aspects that I've chosen are really good. I think that that's a super strong basis for a game that can absolutely expand in a million directions. I think that having like a way to learn enemy skills, and then even if we want to steal more from Final Fantasy VII, link multiple abilities together, find a way that like it's fun for the player to make it feel like you broke the game. Like, oh man, this combo is really, really good. Like, I discovered something here. That's part of why Final Fantasy VII is so much fun. And I think if we literally just take the materia aspect, we just, no multiple characters, no like synergy abilities, no limit breaks, no nothing. Just that part. And take it and expand it, that'll be an awesome basis for the combat. Now we'll get into the town builder aspects. And so I love a good town builder. I always have liked a good management sim, a Zoo Tycoon, a Roller Coaster Tycoon, whatever like that. I think of like Ni no Kuni 2 is my favorite example of this, to where you meet characters and they're like, hey, I want to move into your town. And they'll give you a little quest or whatever, and you complete that quest and they move into your town. And then you can use them to like enhance the town and you get different abilities and different pros. We're having more people in it. So it rewards you again for the people that take the time to explore the world, to talk to everybody. I love that part of games. I don't think enough games do that. I mean, it's a tough thing to do. You have to base an entire game around it. But even something simple, like I grew up playing like, you know, like Animal Crossing and My Sims and stuff like that, to where growing a town was just the whole game. So just having that be a subset of a larger game is always going to be fun to me. And the world of Slime is that. That's what the anime is. More to me than it is the big flashy combat aspects. It's the characters. It's growing this little village into a bustling metropolis. That's the fun part for me. So I want that to be a big aspect of the game. Now, that does, of course, exist in the game that already exists. But it's very, very muted. It's at its core level. I think that the way it exists, again, is very serviceable. It exists to exist, because it's a part of the show, and I applaud them for including that part in it. That being said, it does work like how the rest of the game works, and how the game, I haven't even mentioned this really. The game to me looks like a mobile game that got a bigger budget to be able to be put on console and PC. What's good on them, they had a little bit more faith in the game than what was originally planned, probably. And so, like, a lot of the mechanics, like the town builder, you go off on your little journey, you come back with material, you build that building, and then you can click on the building and get some props from it. Instead of, in my game, where, let's say we include some of the dungeon crawling aspects. I'm not even thinking that deeply about that aspect right now. But say we include that, and you come back to town, and you can build a shop, and you say you could build a weapon shop, and you can go into the shop, and it's just little additions like that are what make the game feel alive, rather than you just tap on a building and a menu pops up. And I don't even think this game does that. I think you just literally tap on the building and you get like a little buff. So just the aspect of like being able to walk into a building, talk to a person, maybe a person from the show or light novel, and buy something from them, makes the world feel more alive. And you can have shops, and you can have different upgrades, and you can meet famous characters. Some are like whatever characters, like there's just a random assortment of goblins, whatever, that you don't really care about that much, that you don't remember from the show or like the story anywhere, but because you recruited them into your town, you feel that little bit of, attachment to them. We all remember our first, like we all remember the first villager you get. Y'all remember the first, I remember the very first person I got in Ni no Kuni 2. Like, it's just a very specific feeling that not a lot of games can capture. And, the very first no-name NPC that, will give a name, you're going to remember because that was your first villager. And that's a very important part of the game to me, is being able to, design your town, place your buildings where you want to, and grow out, the inevitable Jura Tempest Federation in the best way possible. And yeah, I think those three sections, I think having the story work the way it is, and then we kind of get rid of the visual novel aspect, and then we expand the combat into the way we include, taking stuff from enemies and being able to learn from even like your compatriots, even from the people you meet along the way. There's plenty of friends that Rimuru makes along the way, getting to learn their special abilities, their flashy skills that we've seen, on screen and on paper being used by Rimuru. It's just pure fan service in a way that works really well for a video game. And then, of course, being able to build out our town, being able to recruit people in and grow the town, and being able to, reap rewards, and just that pure, simple gameplay benefit. And, make some of the more important characters harder to get. Maybe Shion doesn't want to join the village right away. Make her have a, harder, I see pretty early on in the story, have her have a harder, quest to recruit her than just a regular, goblin or whatever, or make more orcs to have, or more lizard folks, Make it so Gabiru and Gobta don't immediately want to join up, because those are the characters people know, people like. And obviously make Valdora quite hard to have him show up, because he's the Storm Dragon, So a game like that would absolutely, I would love. That's the type of game that I would adore. I would talk about forever. I would try to get people to play it who are not even a fan of the show. So that's what I would do if I was in charge of a slime game. And like I said, I will happily play the slime game that does exist eventually. Like I said, that's the plan. Go to Japan, find a copy, bring it home with me. So, yeah. I look forward to playing that eventually, more because I look forward to going to Japan eventually. But as for now, I can dream about my wish list for a slime game that may hopefully exists someday. But yeah, have you seen Slime? I think I've asked that before. I love the show, so I hope you will watch it if you haven't already. I love it so much. But that'll about do it for me today. Thank you so very much for watching, and as always, like this if you like this, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you at some point.